Good evening. Today we have our invited guest for the interview asked to us in our ESP course. He is Mr. Marcel Delgado. Marcel, welcome. Thank you for being here with us. Could you introduce yourself, please?
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Lam. I think it's me, the one who have to thank you, right, for having me here. It's an honor. Yeah, my name is Marcel Delgado, and I have been an English professor and teacher for about 17 years now, right? And it's always been my pride and joy. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Marcel, for accepting our invitation. Let's start with our questions. The first question that we want to ask you is, where do you work and what courses do you teach there?
Okay, I currently work for two institutions. Like I work for the University of Panama in Cocle Regional Branch, and I also work as a teacher for Meduca in high school. In the University of Panama, I have taught different kind of courses, some of them general English courses, and some other has been English for specific ones, right? For specific purposes.
Will you please mention at least one of those courses that
Sure.
you teach, ESP courses that you teach at the university?
Yeah, I have taught tourism, I have taught legal area, also marketing, computer science, right? Also dentistry, among others.
Thank you for your answer.
Hi, Professor Marcel. Now I have a question for you. Have you taken any ESP course?
Well, yes, these are the ones that I have taught before, right? The ones that I have taught. And well, yeah, I gotta say, all of them has been, a great experience because they help you to complement your knowledge. They broaden your knowledge of the English language, especially when you get into these, technical areas that are sometimes a challenge, but at the same time, it's also a reward.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's continue with the third question. Do you use a specific textbook to teach ESP?
Well, I don't use a specific textbook, but I can tell you that I have used the series Career Path. That is a series from Express Publishing, I think is the publisher. And well, yeah, it's been pretty useful so far. That's the one that I am more familiar with, actually.
Thank you for your answer.
Hi, Teacher Marcel. And then, according to your previous answer, do you consider that using a book makes your teaching practice better?
Right. Well, I wouldn't say better. Well, let's see. I got two positions here. I would say yes and no, right? Yes, not better, but easier. It would make your work easier or more practical. Because the structure of the book will guide you through the process, and of course it's going to be easier for you as an instructor, and probably also easier for the students. But I would say also no, because if you have noticed, most of the ESP books that we have available come in British English, and it's really difficult to find a book, or at least an affordable book, that is created in American English. So that's also a limitation. And also sometimes it's a limitation because you see like no alignment between the book and what the program of these courses requires with a specific university you're working with. So yeah, there are pros and cons, right?
Okay, nice. And then when you teach ESP, you use real materials to teach them, to teach the students?
That's an absolute yes. It's extremely important, right? Mainly because it helps your classes to be more meaningful for the students. Like they will see this connection between what you teach them and the real world. So it extrapolates what you teach them in class. So yes, that's always convenient.
Again, then in this technological time, how do you incorporate technology to your classes?
Well, I sometimes ask my students to, let's say, to consume, right? The materials that I select for them. Let's call it videos, tutorials, also reflective videos. Like it's not always about academic content, but you should also emphasize the the feelings of the students and their civical part of this business also. And also when I want to create some assessments, it's always good to use technology for assessing them. But I would say that the main focus that we should have now, the new trend is having the students to produce information through technology, like having them as content creators, not just consumers of these tools.
Yes, I agree about that. Thank you very much.
Well, now knowing all of this, we would like to know what challenges in a classroom have you faced when you teach an ESP course?
All right. Well, what can I say? What can I say here? One of the main limitations I found, not only in an ESP course, but in most courses you teach when teaching the English language, is having heterogeneous classes. It means like classes that are made of students that are very advanced or skillful when using the language versus those that are, struggling with the language. That's a limitation, right? Because when you don't have the same level in a class, things get more complicated, I would say, for the instructor. And what else? Let me think. Probably when you have to teach courses that are very complex, like for instance, when you get into the legal area, that's a course that requires, good knowledge, not only of the English language, but technical knowledge from the instructor themselves. And then this is sometimes tricky because it means you have to get prepared for the class. You cannot go and improvise a class in technical area. You definitely need to sit down and get yourself ready for what you're going to do, since probably your students will know more than you do about that specific area. Okay, so that's a challenge. And let me think, what else? Oh, well, as I mentioned previously, right? Sometimes you find no alignment between the content that you find in the program, for example, versus the expectations of your students. Like sometimes the programs are not updated, and that's definitely a challenge because students have different expectations of what you are going to do as an instructor. So there's like this contradiction always there, like what to do, follow what you know should be done or following the program, right? So these are the ones that I can recall so far, yes.
Thank you.
You are totally right, Mr. Delgado, when you say that most of the time the programs are not updated to the necessity of the students, to the needs. And that's a topic that we have also to take into account when teaching. And by the way, we have to be very careful with the programs that we are using nowadays. Let's continue with the next question that is then, as you were referring to students with different levels of knowledge, what activities do you use the most to teach ESP vocabulary?
All right. Well, vocabulary should always be the main part of our instruction, right? When it comes to ESP. I think, well, there are different activities that I usually develop with my students. Like I usually have them elicit words, right? Like by using pictures on the board or giving some sort of an explanation for them to infer the word, right? Or to show them an example of a situation that is related to the word you're trying to illustrate at that moment. I also use a lot of realia, like bringing objects, bringing props to the class is also very convenient because it helps them to, visually understand better the concepts. I also use a lot of synonyms and antonyms, like when I have them deal with words that they are not aware of, I usually rely on the use of synonyms also. And well, using dictionaries, I think dictionaries are always essential, either, like printed dictionaries or digital ones. It's always good to have them. I usually have them create graphic organizers, right? So you see that they really understand the connection between these concepts. And like whenever I have my students analyze a reading or complete a listening comprehension task, I usually select the vocabulary in advance So I know what might be the most difficult words for them. Then I prepare them first, right? And get sure that they understand these concepts, and then I bring them into this decoding process, either by reading or listening to the English language chunks that I have selected, right? So that's basically what I usually do with them.
Thank you for your answer.
All right, so my last question will be, what recommendations you will give to practitioners regarding teaching ESP?
All right. Well, I think it's always necessary to diagnose your students' expectations. Like we should, be aware of what they want from you as an instructor, their previous experiences. That's a must. Like we cannot skip that in any course, not only in ESP. And also diagnose their level of proficiency. Like sometimes we have the program, we have X number of topics, but sometimes these topics or content is just too difficult for them. And then we have to, make things more edible to them, right? I would say. So that's also a responsibility. In order to do that, then of course, you need to diagnose their language proficiency. I would recommend any instructor of ESP to use a lot of realia, right? A lot of realia in the class, and use technology also. That's something that we should never forget. It's a great complement, and I think we should not be afraid of using technology, right? Because at the end, that's the trend. That's the way our students learn. And it's not like you have to focus 100% your class on technology, but use it as a tool once in a while, and also as an assessment tool, because it makes the class more fun to them, right? And I would also recommend them to, let's say, focus more on vocabulary or specific task that you want your students to be able to do. Like forget about teaching grammar, forget about being so focused, or grammar oriented, because that's not what you need for a specific course like this. Like they want the English language as the tool to communicate. They're not going to be experts in the English language. So as long as they can communicate effectively, right, and appropriately, I think fluency will always be more important than accuracy. At least that's what my experience have taught me.
Thank you for your answer. And let's go to the last question. That is, in your opinion, what qualities and skills should an effective ESP teacher possess?
All right, right question. Okay, let me think. I think it's always important to be prepared for the classes. Like forget about improvising. You can never do that in a technical area, right? When it comes to ESP, you always have to be prepared in advance. You always have to be familiar with the content that you're going to develop, especially considering that your students probably more know than you do about those topics. So you gotta be prepared. And you have to understand also your students' context, like why is it they are taking this course? What do they expect of you as an instructor? What is this that they expect from you also as, like a facilitator of the English language? Like what is the role they expect you to play in this game? Let's call it this way. And also, like always attempt to make connections between what you teach and the real life. Like if you're teaching them something that is not applicable to real life, then this is just a waste of time. And students get, frustrated or bored or lost when they see there's not this connection. So always keep it real, right? And well, what else? I guess you should also be able to customize your content. Like not everything that a book presents is useful. So you should be able to discriminate what is good, what is not good for your students, of course, considering their context, right? And we open to changes. Like, we have to be constantly updating ourselves, because these technical areas are, changing very quickly. And these are things that we have to be aware also of. Like the last time you taught a course, let's say 5 years ago, never consider the same material for the course, because I'm very sure that things will be very different by this time. So this is something important also, to always be updated. Okay. So these are the ones that I can recall now.
Thank you for your answer. we totally agree to your answer to this question. We have to be aware of our responsibility as teachers and of the needs of our students and the purpose of the course we are teaching. We really appreciate the time that you invested in helping us. In this case, Ileana, Aileen, and my person, Tania, are very grateful to you, and we hope to always be in contact to you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much for this
Great.
invitation, right? Thank you for having me here. Nice sharing with you as usual.
Thank you.